Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Trinity College Dublin this evening. We're really delighted to welcome you all to this evening's public lecture, which is entitled Digital Cultural Heritage and the Limits of Preservation, as you can see from our slide here. The public lecture is actually the final event of 3 events that we've hosted here in the Library of Trinity College to mark International Digital Preservation Day. And I might just take a moment to say that we've got there's a hashtag for that event, and it's up here on the screen, and we'll be kind of tweeting and using that hashtag. And our own the Trinity account is @TCD Library, so it'd be nice to do some tweeting that way. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers to present here tonight. But before I introduce the speakers, I wanted to take a moment to outline why the Library felt it important to mark Digital Preservation Day by providing this public lecture. Now, I'm sure you're all really aware that there's a rapidly increasing volume of information which exists in digital form. Whether it's created as a result of digitising non-digital collections, as a digital publication or an artwork, or as part of the day-to-day business of an organisation or an individual, more and more information is being created digitally, and at a pace which is being created, at the pace at which it is being created is accelerating. Now, this activity is occurring in an environment in which there is a growing awareness of the significant challenges associated with ensuring continued access to these materials, even in the short term. The combination of these factors is both challenging and troublesome. On the one hand, there are considerable opportunities offered by digital technology to create and provide rapid and efficient access to information. On the other hand, there is a very real threat that the digital materials will be created in such a way that not even their short-term viability can be assured, much less the prospect of future generations having access to them. So the library is part of an ecosystem of libraries, national libraries, cultural institutions and memory organisations whose role it is to ensure that we avert really the threat of a digital dark age. And we're delighted to see so many of you working in this area, in these institutions, working in this field, and possibly about to head off in future careers in this area, in the audience tonight, so that we can debate and discuss this issue. Just again, to put it into context for those of you who aren't aware, or maybe you need a little reminder, the library, ourselves here at the Library of Trinity College Dublin, we do work, of course, with colleagues in the British Library and with other institutions in the United Kingdom to collect the cultural and intellectual outputs of the UK for posterity and to provide access to that content. And I guess it was through this avenue that we've come across our colleagues from Visual Editions who are with us here this evening. The British Library is completing research on trends and changes in relation to digital publications, and through this work they've engaged with Visual Editions, and we were able to sort of connect with them through that. Also, the library's strategy, our strategy 2015 to 2020, we have identified as a key priority the advancement and acceleration of our capacity to preserve digital content, both digitised and born digital. So at the moment we're quite concerned with the increase in the volume of born digital content created by the university in the course of its daily business. That's a focus for us at the moment. And we're really targeting kind of our preservation kind of activities in that area. And we're working with a company called AV Preserve in this regard at the moment. So they've been coming over with us, engaging with stakeholders around the university, so that we can really kind of raise awareness, of this critical topic. So now, to get to the important part of the evening, I would like to introduce our speakers, and I'll start with our first speaker this evening, who is Dr Amber Cushing, lecturer and assistant professor in the School of Information and Communication Studies, and of course director of the MSc and graduate certificate in digital curation. Now, we're delighted to welcome Dr Cushing because we feel she's going to really do a job now in setting the scene for us this evening. And in her presentation, she'll describe how the use of a case study method was used to understand the digital curation knowledge, skills, needs and challenges in Ireland in order to direct the development of third-level digital curation educational programmes. So if you could join me in welcoming Dr Cushing to the stage.
So thank you so much for welcoming me here today. I want to speak in capacity as my director of the MSc in all of our other programs in digital curation. So in 2004, UCD recruited me here to specifically start this program in digital curation, which would be the first one in Ireland. So since 2014, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we've collected data to develop the program. The program did officially launch in 2015. Thus far, we've had 3 graduates. We're just started our 3rd year, so it was a good time to reflect back and look at all our data and what digital curation looks like in Ireland. If you hadn't guessed, I'm American. I came from the U.S., the University of North Carolina, where I got my PhD. Was really one of the leaders in the U.S. for developing digital curation education. So I did bring some of that with me, but I needed to place it in an Irish context. So I'll tell you a little bit about digital curations, what that term means, about our study, the study I conducted with Dr. Kalpana Shankar, who's also at UCD ICS, Information Communication Studies, and really the larger issues we identified and what they actually mean. So the definition of digital curation, I've offered digital curation and digital stewardship up for you. So according to Abbott, the definition of digital curation is the management and preservation of digital material to ensure accessibility over the long term. That's the succinct definition. There is chapters of definitions, but this one's pretty good for being quite short. Now, digital stewardship is defined as the creation, maintenance, preservation, dissemination, and exhibition of trusted bodies of digital information for current and future use. So there's a lot of these words thrown around. We have digital preservation, we have digital curation, we have digital stewardship. They're all generally in the same area. There's different levels of specificity. But what's important here, and if we look at what overlaps these terms, is long-term or future use. This word preservation and also management and maintenance. So we're taking care of digital objects, essentially. Okay, so this is the DCC Digital Curation Lifecycle, developed by the Digital Curation Center in Glasgow. And this is one of the main life cycles we use to guide digital curation activities. And I'll point out, and I don't know if there's pointer on here, but I'm afraid to kind of find out. But you can see preservation is in there. It's right at the bottom where, like, if this was a clock, it would be 6 o'clock. So preservation is there. It's also, if you think of this as a core, preservation is the next level of this core. And what this really demonstrates is preservation is just one action in the entire life cycle of digital curation. So when we talk about digital curation, we talk about thinking about how we're going to preserve objects or maintain them over the long term before we even create them. And that's why you see conceptualization up there at the top where 12 o'clock would be, and it's actually outside of the circle. So when we talk about preservation, we think about things at the end of a life cycle. We created them, they served a purpose, now we want to maintain them, so we try to preserve them. But you can't always do that well with digital objects because there are so many, accessibility issues. Technology is constantly changing and so forth. So we want to think about how we're going to maintain them over the long term. I didn't press that. I don't know what happened. So we want to maintain them over the long term. Here I'm just comparing the traditional records life cycle with the digital curation life cycle, and just to emphasize that we start to think about how we're going to maintain things earlier. So there's a lot of research out there about digital curation education. So there are a lot of models developed at mostly U.S. schools of information and library science, and that is for a reason. And it's because there was a large granting body, IMLS, Institute of Museum and Library Services, in the United States from the period of about 2005 to 2010. They funded so many of these studies to look at digital curation education. As a result, there was a lot of data produced, and that's why you suddenly see so many models and so much writing about education in this period. But there aren't that many in Europe, at least that I have found. A lot of them are localized. So DigCurve was one exception. That was a European project, but it focused on vocational education. It wasn't necessarily a third-level education project. It was mostly based in the UK, but Ireland did participate, and I think they did do some focus groups here. So my question is, what are the digital curation skills, needs, and challenges in the Irish context? And when I say Irish context, I'm referring to the Republic as well as Northern Ireland. And how can this be integrated into an effective education model? I knew what digital curation education was, but I didn't know how it was going to fit in here. Okay, so we ran a 2-year case study. We started in 2015 with a 64-item online questionnaire. Then the next year, we conducted a 30-minute semi-structured interviews. And then in 2017, we followed up with a much shorter 10-item online questionnaire. So the first study, or the first questionnaire, was really trying to just get a sense of the landscape. We then tried to go a little bit more narrow and talk specifics with a small number of people, and then we kind of drew back a little bit, and then focused this last questionnaire on education and what people wanted from education. So these were our findings. Only 94 responses to our 2015 online questionnaire, which was pretty good considering it was 64 questions. From that, we developed interview questions, and we conducted 9 phone interviews lasting about 30 minutes. There were 164 responses to our 2017 online questionnaire, and that was back in about, I think that was in April, wrapped up in March. So we were able to gather data in some different formats over the period of 2 years. So let's talk about that first questionnaire in 2015. So this is what the respondent profile looked like, just to give you an idea of who was responding to this online questionnaire. Now, it was distributed a lot on listservs. The LAI helped us out by distributing it on their main listserv, and a lot of after that was word of mouth. So most of the respondents, almost half, came from third-level education or were working in third-level education, or I should say identified with that sector. So private companies, government, public nonprofits, and other were pretty even as far as their participation, and then county council was a little bit higher than that. So this was who really responded to this questionnaire. So let's look at who's responsible for maintaining digital information in your organization. So we asked this question, maintaining digital information. We asked it in a couple different ways just to kind of get at the issue. So essentially, 53.26% reported that another unit manages backing up work. Okay. 30.43% reported another unit is also responsible for using cloud storage. 70.65% never run maintenance checks on their machine as another unit is responsible. So what's kind of concerning about this is I get the sense that there's a lot of this other unit does it for me. And when we think about digital curation, it's really an interdisciplinary sort of action in the sense that a lot of different parties are participating. No one unit on a university campus or in an organization is completely responsible for things, especially at the individual level. So I wonder if no one ever backs up their work because they think the IT people are doing it for them, but that's actually not the case. And I kind of wonder about that. So that was my first response looking at this initial data. So then we asked more about maintaining digital information. So only 47.37% report having a disaster plan for digital threats. This could be anything from data loss to attacks, anything like that. 59.32% never review the disaster plan. So those who had it did it once and never looked at it again. And when we think about paper, we can probably think about a paper disaster plan as lasting a little bit longer, but because digital technology changes so rapidly, it's a little dangerous to not review the disaster plan at least annually. So there was a little bit of concern there. So how familiar are you with the digital curation life cycle? That was the life cycle I showed you on the second slide, I think it was, second or third, which really encompasses and describes what digital curation is. Not many people, almost half of the respondents weren't familiar with it at all. Now, one can still be engaged in digital preservation and curation without knowing about a life cycle, but this is a good indicator of what people understand. So then we asked about CPD engagement, with the assumption that a lot of people wouldn't have received any education in their postgraduate degrees about preservation, or not much of it, because there just wasn't a lot of offerings, or there weren't a lot of offerings in Ireland at that point. So we asked about people reading professional development materials. We asked about people reading websites, and then we asked about people using social media, because we were curious as to how people, so assuming that there was no digital curation education at that point, how are people actually learning how to do it and deal with these issues? Because I would say that preservation and digital data issues really started coming on the scene in the late 90s, when ubiquitous internet access kind of brought these issues. More and more people had personal computers and started thinking about it. Organizations were managing a lot more digital data at that point. So it appears that most people were engaging and learning about digital curation via social media. So that was interesting. And they were using social media more often than they were other kinds of engaging with other types of material. Okay, so then let me talk a little bit about the interviews. So that would be your left. I have the textbook definitions of digital curation and digital stewardship that I showed you a couple slides back. On the right, I have some of the phrases from our participants. And I display them side by side because I wanted to demonstrate a couple things. We have a broad range of definitions here. So we have people talking about storage, then work, making material available, which we would call access, looking after archives, making digital collections available, being digitizing objects. And I see digitizing twice there, which is a little dangerous, because when you put something, when you take a physical object and you make it digital, that actually isn't preservation. And that's really important. The field generally believes that we don't digitize for preservation, we digitize for access, in the sense that if we put something on our website, we can make it available to a lot more people. But we still need to have that original format available, whether it be born digital or paper. So this is the slide that I always show my students, because it's really important to learn that digital curation and digitization are not the same thing. Just because you scan something does not mean you preserved it. Really, really, really important. And I think I showed this slide like 5 times or 6 times over the semester, because it's so important. Just to remember, digitization, digital curation, digital preservation, separate things. So I came to the conclusion that a lot of that interview data was fragmented and incomplete. It was also pretty narrow, so we had a lot of snippets. So if I think back to that life cycle, access was certainly on it, preservation was on it, maintaining over the long term was on it. So people were getting sort of snapshots of digital curation, but they weren't getting the whole picture. So I thought that was definitely an issue that we needed to combat with education. So then we looked at work practices, and this is a pretty long quote, and I won't read the whole thing, but essentially what this person is saying, and this wasn't the only participant who said this, which I thought was really interesting, was that essentially they were saying they're the only person in their organization that looks after digital material and make sure it's available for the long term. And because they were the only person who did that and had that expertise, it was really difficult for them to explain that to their colleagues and explain that to basically administration, their bosses, the people who control the money. So it's really, really difficult because even though they were working with other information professionals, they couldn't assume that everybody knew what they were doing, why it was important, why it needed to be done, and why it needed resources. And this led to a lot of frustration, and a lot of our participants discussed this. And this was across a lot of different sectors. So we talked to people, in the private sector, in the public sector, different cultural heritage institutions, for-profit companies, and so forth. But this was pretty much a constant. So as far as work practices, there was this need for an ability to educate colleagues and also for an ability to educate administration about digital curation work. But remember, nobody was calling it digital curation at this point. People are calling it digitalization, they're calling it preservation, they're calling it management, all of these different things. So again, that fragmentation is bleeding through. So, and then this brings us to our 2017 questionnaire. 92.68% of the people who responded were interested in an online CPD course in digital stewardship. They were most interested in developing skills and knowledge of digital creation tools. That was definitely of most interest. And this was actually pretty encouraging here. So people didn't really know what digital curation was, but they knew it was important and they wanted to learn more. So this was kind of like a bright end to the data collection. So what does this actually mean? So I had 3 different kind of piles, digital piles of data, and I had to put them together and figure out what they actually meant and what they meant for education and how I could sort of make things better. So the first thing I identified was communication. So we have a lack of understanding of digital curation across the board, either all of the data collections found that. So many people, again, were one of few who were the experts or practitioners in their organization, and they needed the ability, or they needed to develop the ability to communicate with their colleagues and the administration so they could actually achieve what they needed to achieve and what they wanted to achieve. This idea that digital creation looks different in different sectors in Ireland. So while there were some issues that were cross-cutting across all sectors, again, this issue of communication, there were other things that were very specific to potentially someone who worked in a museum, to someone who worked in a library, to someone who worked for an archaeological field service. And again, everybody's calling it a different thing, so we're not standardized with language. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to look at was context. So I went back to the existing literature and also my background working as a PhD student at the University of North Carolina and their development of digital curation programs. And what I found was that for the most part there was an assumed understanding of preservation and curation issues. It's really common if you were to do a Google search for jobs in the US or Canada or even the UK, you could search, like there are people with the role digital curator or data curator. It's not as common as librarian, but it will come up in a job search. I had another student write a thesis last year who actually looked at Irish job postings, and while there were a lot of digital curation skills embedded in those job postings, you'll never see a job title of digital curator. I have yet to see one. I think maybe there would have been one since we actually did the original study. Again, a lot of people do that type of work and they need these skills, but they don't actually have that job title. And a lot of this literature that existed assumed that there were job titles and it was really easy. There were job analysis of job postings, analysis of education, and all these other things. I also identified that there existed a dire need for what I'm calling in-reach skills in Ireland that I don't see identified in North America, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. When I say in-reach, it's that issue of advocating or just explaining what you do and what you need to your colleagues and to administration. And that was, we usually think of this, the other side of in-reach being outreach, where we tell the public what we do. Because the public is not usually ever. I hold out hope, but I don't think the public is ever really going to understand digital preservation in the way that information professionals do. And that's fine. But it is really difficult when other information professionals that we work with don't understand what we do and why we need resources. So I thought that I needed to address that in education in some way. There's also this issue that staff might consider engaging with other units responsible for DC tasks. So I wonder, and I'm left to wonder, how many individuals actually sit down and have a conversation with the IT department, who we think of being in charge of this, or maybe the library, and ask what they actually do for us. Are they actually backing up the data like we think they are? Are they using the cloud like we think they are? Are these discussions actually happening? So what I did was I went back, I took all my data, I looked at all the literature, and I went back to the program that I had developed. So I determined that, in consultation with my head of school, that I think we needed to change the name of our program because we have this issue that a lot of people just don't know what digital curation means, and that if they don't know what it means, they're not willing to sign up for a year-long postgraduate program exploring it, excuse me, and developing skills in it. And anecdotally, I would have a lot of students who would sign up, who would initially apply to the MSc in digital curation, because I can see who applies, but when it comes time to pay their their deposit, they end up going the traditional MLIS or the traditional MSc in information studies, for various reasons. But then they come to me and say, well, I actually want to take all your modules because that's what I really want to do, which of course is frustrating for me because they actually can't take all my modules because they need to take core library modules or core MSc modules. So I explained to them, well, you can pick one or two. Maybe you might pick this one, you might pick that one. Or they start in a library program and they actually decide halfway through this is what they want to do, but again, they are stuck in cores that they need to complete for the field that they're in. So I thought, after, again, looking at a lot of different job ads, that management in digital information or digital information management would be the most fitting. So we have an MSc, which is 90 credits, a grad dip, which is 60 credits, and a graduate certificate, which is 35 credits. And their name will all be changed for 2018. Okay. So the next thing I did was I found that we needed to have tracks to address that situational context of digital curation looking different whether you work in whatever sector you work in. So what I have done is I developed 3 tracks. So there's a core number of modules. I think there's 35 or 40. About 35 or 40. That everybody in digital curation will take, or I should say digital information management at this point will take. And then we have some specialized elective modules that address the contextual issues that one is likely to face if they work in the private sector, if they work in the cultural heritage sector, or if they work in civil service or the HEIs. When I say HEIs, I'm not necessarily talking about libraries, but more research administration, because we've actually found that that's really, these skills are really important for people who work in research administration. So then I did more work and decided to launch a 15-credit professional certificate in digital information management that would be offered either completely online or as a hybrid option where one of the modules is online and there's a core online module and then there's an elective module that is an accelerated class lecture meeting. So that format is typically 4 days of lecture and then the rest of the semester to complete the assignments. But there's only 4 days, 8 hours a day, so if people need to take time off of work or they need to travel, they can do that in just 4 days. So this is, will again go live in 2018. We've started development with it thus far. People are really excited about that online option, and that really came through in that last online questionnaire that we did. So again, I went back to the drawing board and I said, what do all these things need? So I now have 4 programs. You can go digital curation, digital information management for 90 credits all the way down to 15 credits. So just a little bit to, the full year-long module. I decided we really needed to develop this in-reach and outreach for digital projects module to address that need about how these people who manage data are going to advocate for their roles and for the work that they do. And that will be offered online, and it will be an option for any of the modules, I should say any of the programs that we offer. And that's all we have so far. So I do have to thank the ALA of UK and Ireland for funding this research and initially getting us started.